Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Serah Muindi. I'm a practicing counseling psychologist. On this channel, I talk about therapy, leadership, business, and travel on occasion. So today I'm going to be sharing a very different experience, and so I'm going to be talking about my Chevening journey and how I got selected for Chevening. Okay, so this structure will change from how I've done my previous videos because this is more of a storytelling of my experience than it is detailing certain tips for different topics that I usually talk about. However, there'll be some tips in here as well, some pointers for you. If you like the video, if you like the content, please like it, leave a comment if you have a question. I'll be glad to answer as well. Okay, now let's get into it. I started my Chevening application in 2022 in August. The reason I started this application is because one of my friends, his name is Kimani. Side note, Kimani runs an organization called Tumaini Innovation Center. They normally support street connected youth. I've actually worked with them before. So Kimani calls me and tells me, Serah, have you applied for Chevening? I said, no, I haven't applied for Chevening. I was actually very antsy about applying because I wasn't ready to go for the masters. But this is the funny thing. I had received a lot of push from people in my circle telling me, Serah, you need to do your masters. You're already doing so well in terms of how you run your business. You need to pursue your masters. So I got that from one of my colleagues. I got it from one of my friends. I got it from one of my friends' professors. So there was a lot of push for me to do my masters. And I was listening. I was hearing also the opportunities I have wanted to unlock, especially with where our business is going, that require that at least one person on our team has a background in this specific field. So when Kimani called me and told me, Serah, have you applied for Chevening? I said, no, I haven't. And then he was like, apply. I'm telling you guys, he pushed me until finally I said, fine, it's okay, I'll apply. So I started my application in August. And when I started my application, I sent him a message and told him, okay, I've created an account, I've started my application. Usually, the last time I did anything close to this was a few years earlier in 2019. I applied for Mandela Washington Fellowship. So I'm an alumni of 2019. And you can imagine 3-4 years later is when I was making another application of this kind. Okay, so I started my application. Guys, how many drafts did I write for my Chevening application? 4. Okay. So usually the application has like standard questions that you input data, things like your passport number, your date of birth, yes, no questions, and then there's essays. The Chevening application for when I was applying had 4 essay questions. I did my draft ones. I read them. The English was very good. So I talked to a friend of mine. He's another friend of mine. His name is Thomas Odero. Thomas Odero is also a Mandela Washington Fellowship alumni, same year as me, 2019. So he is also a Chevening alumni because he got Chevening the year before me. So 2021, he's a Chevening alumni. 2021, 2022. So I reached out to him and I asked him, I've done my essay questions. Can you have a look at them and just give me your thoughts? He went through them. He told me, Serah, the English is good, well written, but you're saying absolutely nothing. The information there is so minimal. You need to revise your essays. So I did my second drafts. We had calls, long hours of phone video calls, because at the time he was not in the country. Just going through those essay questions so that I'm giving feedback, him telling me, change this question, you need to answer, what does this statement mean, add this, remove this. I'm telling you guys. So I did my draft 2s. I sent over. I had done my first 2, question 1, question 2 were good, really good, but my question 3 and 4 were not good. So we go through them again, lots of drilling. We do my question 3 and question 4s again. So I do my draft fours. Before I do my draft fours, I send them to Kimani. So we first did, Thomas reviewed my first draft, my second drafts, and then we wrote my third drafts. So when I wrote my third drafts, I sent them to him. He was like, question 1 and 2, you're good. 3 and 4, you still need to work on them. I continued working on them. Working on them means editing, revising, reading, researching, so that all the information everything is like on point. So I sent them back to Kimani and I told him, hey Kimani, please have a look at my essays. This is what I've written. Kimani, when we're on the call and he's going through my essays, he tells me, Serah, you need to change your university ranking. So let me just give some context. Normally, when you're selecting the universities, you choose 3, just like local Kenyan universities here. When you're choosing to go to your bachelor's degree in Campo, you choose 3 courses in 3 universities. Same thing for this one. But now the ranking is important, because if you get your first ranking offer, that's where you go, even if you have a third offer, but you prefer the third one. If you got ranking 1 is where you're uko ndio unaenda, that's where you're going. So he told me, you need to change your ranking for your school number 3, you need to bring it to school number 1. So I went through, I read, he told me this is the best you need to do the course you want to do. The course I want to do is business psychology. So I changed my ranking I removed my number 3 to my number 2. And then I submitted I did my, that is my draft 3s. I reviewed and I redid my draft 3s, and then I wrote them again, my draft 4s. So by draft 4, guys, it's a few days to when the application window is closing. So you can imagine it's taken me several months to actually work on this application. So I said, hey, I read through, even I was impressed. I was like, oh my goodness, wow, hey, this is such good work. I said, my draft 4s, I actually sent them in. I didn't even send them back to either of them to review again. I just said, fine, this is it, time is running out, I have to submit. I submitted. I did not have any entries for the unis. I hadn't applied to the universities. I just did my Chevening application, hit submit, and then waited. Guys, I'm telling you, I used to go back to that portal. You like have an account on Chevening where you go and you check your account to see if there are changes that have been made. So I waited and waited and waited. That was in, I think, September. No, just starting of November, if I'm not wrong. I submitted my essays and then the waiting started. That is the most stressful time I have had in ages. If this is the only thing you're applying for, please, this is my advice to you. Start therapy. If therapy is expensive for you, please find people you can talk to, because that waiting, it can drive you insane, okay? In the middle there, I met people that are scholars. I participated in a different program with an organization we have worked with before called Eldo Hub. We did a shoot for success stories that they were featuring. I met some people from the High Commission and I was so tempted. I was like, guys, I just call them and ask them if I got selected or not. But I kept calling Kimani. Kim talked me down. Kimani and TJ Thomas, they really like managed the nerves I was having. They kept telling me, just wait, be patient. If you're selected, you're selected. If you try to call anybody, you know how strict this selection process is. You just be patient and wait. So guys, that's what I did. I was patient. I waited and waited and waited. September went, November went, December, January, Feb. The first mid-Feb, I received an email. We are delighted to let you know that you have made it to the next process in the selection, and you will kindly make an appointment for your booking for your interview. That was mid-Feb. No, sometime in Feb. Yes, mid-Feb. Yeah, mid-Feb. Wow, guys, the joy I felt to just have made it to the interviews. I was like, oh my God, I got the interview. then now one of the things I had to do was get my recommendation letter. So when you make your application, you have certain timelines when you must upload certain documents. So the first document you apply, of course, is your undergraduate degree and your transcripts, which I had already uploaded. Then you have a timeline by which you must send in your recommendation letters. So I talked to Kimani. This is now between November and February. I talked to Kimani. I sent him an official email and requested he write me a recommendation letter, which he did. Then I talked to Dr. Elizabeth Owino. She's a lecturer at my university. Shout out to Dr. Elizabeth Owino, because two things she did for me. One, she wrote me the recommendation letter. Two, she gave me advice that was necessary for me. When I first did the email to ask her to do the recommendation letter, I was really casual and informal, and she decided she was not going to write me the letter, guys. And so she kept quiet. So it took her several weeks to get back to me, and I'm wondering, what's up? Why is she not talking? And then I actually called her. When I called her, she told me, Serah, I had decided I'm not writing for you this recommendation letter. Guys, my heart sank. I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. Is there any reason you've decided not to write for me? And she tells me, Serah, the way you requested for that letter was very, very unprofessional. In academia, we don't talk like that. We don't request for data or recommendations like that. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for telling me. I'm going to now write a formal request. And she said, it's okay, you do that. So I go back and I write a formal request. Guys, have you ever seen Dear Madam Doctor? And then I wrote the request, and then down there I wrote like kind regards. It was a very formally done letter, request email. And then she wrote me the recommendation letter, so I uploaded the 2 recommendation letters. Then it was waiting time. February, I got the news about the interview. So I made my appointment for March 13th. Guys, between Feb and March 13th, Kimani shared a WhatsApp group link for people that had been shortlisted for the Chevening scholarship. So for Kenyans actually, and I think a few other countries. This team, I have to shout out Frida. Frida is actually one of the Cheveners that got selected for this year. Shout out to you, Frida, because Frida organized mock interviews every day for almost 2 months, because the interviews were starting, I think, in March all the way through to end of April. So Frida organized interviews, mock interviews every month, and so you would pick a date for when you want to be the interviewee, and then there'd be a panel. The panel would consist of other people that have been shortlisted, previous alumni, and current Cheveners. So the interview panel is actually, it's a mock interview, so the interview is the same way like the normal interview for the Chevening. So every day I was joining those Chevening mock interviews to listen, to learn, to take notes. And every day somebody else was being interviewed, somebody new was being interviewed. If you needed to like do 2 mock interviews, you would do it just to prepare you. You receive feedback. Those interviews would take sometimes 2 hours in the night from like 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Just being told, for this question you can answer it this way, for this question you need to consider this perspective. Sharpening like this, like wow, my God. So I did my mock interview. I received feedback. I attended actually every day. There was a mock interview. So the days I could make it, I would attend. And every time I would learn something new. I'd write a new point. Until now, I did my interview. I was like, okay, enough. I'm not attending any other mock interviews. Time for me to breathe in, calm down. If there's any knowledge I did not have, I will not have it between the dates. That last date prior to my interview and my interview date. So one of the other tips here that I received from Kimani, because I consulted him on almost everything, was to make sure you go to somewhere that has steady, reliable internet. Also, sometimes your office may not be ideal, because you can be in the middle of the interview and then one of your employees or a client walks in and says, excuse me, please, and you don't want such scenarios, okay? You don't want such scenarios. So I went to Kikau 64, and I have a history. When I did my Mandela Washington fellowship interview, they weren't open then. They opened in 2020 during COVID, and I got a UNICEF grant for my business. I did my interview at Kikau. So I went to Kikau 64 for my interview. Guys, a few minutes to, first of all, that night there was no sleeping. I was just too anxious, too restless. I finally slept really, really late. Woke up at like 8 a.m. By 8 a.m. I was up, ready, shower, done. By 9 I was at Kikau, just nerves. So at exactly 11, I had my laptop set up and my phone. My laptop refused. It decided today is not it's not joining Teams. My interview was on Teams. So I put my laptop aside, picked my phone, and just like was waiting now to just for 11. I think my interview was at 11 to 11:30. So at like a few minutes to 11, I was just there counting the seconds, waiting until 11 so that I joined the meeting. I did my interview. My interview went as well as I can imagine, because I didn't leave there feeling I've got this, because especially towards the end I felt like I was talking too much, I was over explaining, and I was like, oh my god, I hope I didn't say anything that will mess my chances. I kept trying to interpret the people's body language, the interviewers' body language, just to try and guess, is it a yes, am I gonna get in or not? I waited. So that was March. I had my interview. Now, you think that anxiety of waiting to know whether you've been selected or not is good. You wait. After the interviews, you've been shortlisted. You haven't been selected. So you have to wait. Anxiety before the interviews was like, let's say at like, if your dial is at 100, anxiety before the interviews was at 20. Anxiety after the interviews is like dialed up to 80 or like 90. Or even 100, because my god, waiting from March after my interview, March, April, May, June, those months, hey, if there's nothing else that you're doing, please have a very strong support system, people that will listen to you, people that will talk to you, people that will offer you support, because hey, that pressure is next level. So I waited. I was so stressed, completely stressed. I just kept talking. I remember talking to my husband and telling him, Kai, this thing is just too much. I can't bear the pressure. I can't bear the anxiety. So please have people you can talk to, who will keep you grounded, who will encourage you, who will motivate you, who will advise you so that you're not overwhelmed. So in June, mid-June, I remember I was in a session. I was mid-sessions. That day, the day before, I just felt it in my instinct. So first of all, guys, I'm a Christian. So I had prayed about this scholarship for months, okay? For months. The day before, I just felt this thing. Trust God, He's going to give it to you. And I said, okay, fine. I remember actually getting out of bed and just getting out of the seat and going to bed. And just saying, fine, I'm going to trust God. If it's mine, He's giving it to me and He's going to give it to me. That next day, I remember I was in between sessions. That is one of the days my day was really packed, my afternoon. So I had sessions 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, all the way to 7. All the way to 6. I think actually to 7, yeah. At 3 p.m. I was in between like 2 sessions. I just finished one and I was just starting another one. And then I saw that notification email up there from, it was written do not reply at, I think Chevening, I don't remember. And it said, we are delighted, guys. The joy I felt, next level, next level. Okay, let me cut this now and like continue to the next story. Okay, pause. All right.